I need to put these gloves on. It is cold out here. Hello, hello. So hi, I'm back. I made a video recently just kind of giving you a little update on what life has been like since being saved for the last 3 months. I have gotten a lot of great feedback from you guys, and I am kind of floored at how many people are saying that they relate to what I'm saying, and it lifted them up and it inspired them, or it made them feel like they're not alone, and that was my intention. So I'm really happy that it's finding you guys, and I'm also kind of like scared. There's something about putting yourself out there and having a bunch of people kind of weighing in that is both very exciting and also kind of terrifying. I think that's probably an instinctive human feature that we have. But here I am today. I'm outside again because I've been kind of struggling a little bit, to be honest with you, because I have days where I feel so sure, so deeply in my faith, so connected to God, and I don't actually lose that connection. It's not that I lose it, it's more like the opinions of other people who especially are not in Christ, sometimes can really get me down. It is very difficult for me to maintain my certainty that I am following what I feel like God is telling me to do, and most people in this world can't really relate to that. You know, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and they couldn't see how much progress I've actually been making in this way, attempting to better myself for the glory of God and not for the glory of the world, for status, for money, for, I don't know, these markers that are so important to us in our little human lives, and they are important. Money is important, right? Like, I'm not saying it's not, but I'm not a very like money motivated person. I love money, I love having it, don't get me wrong, but when I don't have it, I know how to kind of just like make do, and you know, like, I don't feel like that's all there is. But basically my main struggle right now is just feeling misunderstood, feeling like people around me don't get it, and it's very difficult sometimes to maintain a faith that, no, I am following what God is telling me, even if it doesn't make sense to the people around me. That has been something I've been struggling with actually for years, and now I kind of have like a clear idea of what it is that I'm following, and I feel more maybe vindicated in following that. I don't know if that's the right word, but I still struggle sometimes. And I have close friends who I've known since childhood who we've kind of just like grown apart. We kind of are just going our separate ways, and as much as I love them, I'm kind of just at a point where I'm like, listen, if you have an interaction with somebody and you leave that interaction 90% of the time feeling worse than when you went in, that's really something to take note of, because life is too short. Life is too short, and maybe you guys served a purpose for each other at another point in time, and maybe that purpose is accomplished, or maybe you will come together again in the future, but right now you're just not aligned. And I know it's not all about like every friend you have needs to be on the same page as you and have the same beliefs as you and have the same outlook as you. No, I'm not saying that. In fact, having some friends that are a little bit different in some of those regards is probably healthy, because it helps you not kind of sink into an echo chamber where everybody you know and everything you read and everything you take in is of one opinion. It's healthy to expand your mind in certain ways, even if you don't agree or believe in what it is. That strengthens your opinions and your beliefs, right? So I'm not saying that. This is more so just to kind of encourage you that, you know, if you're resonating with what I'm saying, maybe it is time for you to be brave enough to go your own way. And I know that's not always easy to do. As human beings, we are wired to be social creatures, and we also are wired to fear being shunned from the group, because in the past that kind of meant that we might die, that we would not have safety. To be in a group meant we had some kind of safety, and security for our survival. So it's actually in our deep little lizard brain to be like, ooh, I don't know if people don't agree or whatever it is, maybe I should just keep my mouth shut. But it's keeping you, it's holding you back. To do that holds you back and it keeps you small. And it's not to say that we're striving for this great, ambitious, like, path here. It's not really what I'm talking about. It just keeps you, in this case, for me personally, it keeps me further away from God. And I've had to kind of really think with myself on this back and forth, because I'm like, well, and I'm not calling them sinners, but Jesus hung out with sinners and tax collectors and prostitutes and people who were not considered to be holy by any means in the time period we're discussing, right? And still now, I guess, right? And he said, why did he do that? Because he said it's like the sick people need healing from a doctor, not the people who are well. So he kind of made an analogy there that he is the doctor and he's hanging out with people who are sick, because those are the people that need healing, not the people who are already holy and well and righteous, whatever. So as much as I understand that, there's, you know, it's very difficult to be the odd one out. It's hard. It's not easy to do that. And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, on one hand, I think to myself, what would Jesus do? Jesus would continue to be loving and forgiving, even if he is continuously being slighted, right? But at the same time, as a human being, our lives here are short and they are finite, and there is such a thing, especially if you are kind of an introvert like I am. Like, I have a finite amount of social energy. I'm not an extrovert. I am not energized by people, generally speaking, unless we are really on the same page and we're having some amazing conversations, then maybe. But in general, I am not energized by being around people. I am recharged by solitude, and that gives me the power to kind of go out and share and speak and maybe socialize, right? So if I have a finite amount of social energy and I'm spending that energy that I have on people who are depleting me, I guess I can see now why it's kind of putting me in a low state. It's not helping. And I go back to, well, what would Jesus have done? But he was also the Son of God. So it's like, as much as we can kind of use him as a guideline of be like, what would he do? And try to align ourselves closer to that ideal, because it is an ideal. We're not born like that, right? We still need to give ourselves grace and understand that we are human beings. We are not at the level that he is at, right? And we have a finite amount of time here on this earth. And so does it mean that we need to shun people who are not in our wavelength and just, you know, kind of be really rude to them and be like, you know what, you don't get it, or you're a sinner, or this and that? No. It doesn't mean that. But we can kind of just pull back gracefully and do our own thing, and accept that if you are in a season of isolation right now, God is preparing you for something great. He is preparing you for the things that you have prayed and hoped for. This is my hope. And that's what I feel like is happening. I genuinely feel like I'm in a season where I am preparing for the things that I have always wanted. I feel like they're coming. I feel like they're on the horizon, but there's still more that God needs to do with me before I'm really ready to hold those blessings, because it is one thing to receive the blessings, it is another thing to maintain them. And that is something that I've struggled with. And I was thinking about that today, even, because not to get into, you know, too much, you know, differences of theology and denominations. Again, I'm still learning. I'm not a part of any specific denomination. I'm just exploring. But I was learning about Reformed theology, and I was learning about the idea of predestination, which I know is like controversial in the Christian world. Predestination is the idea that God chose you to be saved. God chose you to be a part of his elect before you were saved, before you became conscious of that. You were already predestined to be on this path. And, you know, I don't know exactly where I stand on that yet, but I have found myself kind of coming back to that over and over again. And every time I've kind of come to that idea, I'm like, well, I don't know, like, shouldn't everyone kind of have the chance to be saved? Shouldn't everyone have the chance to know God's love and Jesus's love and all of that good stuff? And I think yes, but at the same time, I have noticed for myself in my life, throughout my whole life, before I've even gotten to this point, there are people who are just genuinely, they don't have ears to hear this. Like, they do not have a heart open for this, and I don't think it's like their fault. I mean, I think it's kind of almost natural to kind of have a skepticism towards things that we can't necessarily see or prove, right? Like, it's understandable, but I myself, having come from no religious background, no religious teachings, you know, no idea about really Jesus or even God in any kind of theological sense at all growing up, I always felt his presence. Like, I always felt his guidance, and I didn't know what to call it, but throughout my life, what I would call then would kind of visualize, or I would manifest things, and I would get them. They would come to pass very, very consistently, and even when they would turn out to be not so good for me, and that would be a lesson that I needed to learn. I would get the things that I prayed and asked for quite a lot, and that's something that I think about a lot, because I'm like, wow, God, like you blessed me and you guided me before I ever really understood you. I still barely understand you, but before I even came to know you, before I surrendered to you and surrendered to your will, before I ever got to that point, he's been here with me this whole time, and it's very obvious in my life too. It's not even just little things. Like, I had been rescued out of horrendous situations by miraculous means, like quite a few times. Like, my life has been kind of weird and challenging, and you know, like, I've had a lot of moments where I've experienced miracles that brought me to my knees in gratitude and tears. And this is before I really resonated with the Christian idea of God. But I knew in those moments I was always thanking God. I wasn't thanking the universe. You know, I would try to be inclusive by saying the universe and this and that, and you know, I would pray to the universe to manifest this and that, but when the miracles would happen for me, oh, I was on my knees crying and thanking God. I knew it was God. And I was thinking about that today, like, wait a minute, I've known that he's been with me this whole time without really even understanding that. Like, and nobody told me that. Like, I didn't grow up with any kind of like Jesus loves you or God loves you. I didn't grow up with any of that at all. I grew up in a completely secular world, so it's like, and I look around and just the people that I've known and interacted with throughout my life, and this is not a judgment on them, it's simply just kind of an observation that, you know, I couldn't say the same things had occurred for them. I couldn't say that each time they really prayed for something or wished for something that it was granted, and I couldn't say that they have the ears or heart to hear this now. So it's really making me kind of wonder, are some people predestined? Are some people chosen for this? And I did say that in my testimony, which is interesting. And again, I hesitate to speak on that because I don't want to make other people feel like they are just not chosen and there's nothing they can do about that, because I don't really think that's the ideology. I think it's that some people are predestined and they are a part of God's elect, but we can still speak, we can still evangelize, because the people who are chosen are out there who are not saved, who are not aware, who are not awake to that yet. And so we are speaking to those people to wake them up, and there will always be people who will not hear it, who won't understand, who will disagree, who will, you know, think you're crazy, or they'll persecute you, you know, like they will hate you in his name. That literally says that in the Bible. They will hate you in my name. So I don't know, like, I'm kind of just thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, something I'm thinking about. Anyway, it's hard to be misunderstood. It's hard to be the odd one out. It's hard to feel like you don't get back what you put in with other people. And it's hard to try and continue to be loving despite that, and continue to be forgiving and all of that. But I know that, you know, if you can relate to what I'm saying, I know that God made us this way for a reason, because we have a different purpose here. And like I said in my last video, you may not have even discovered what that purpose is yet, or you may know, but you still have days sometimes where you feel kind of down and discouraged. I think that's normal. I think that's a part of the human experience. And I don't really enjoy feeling this, but you know what? It gives you more depth. It gives you more compassion. That's something that I'm able to find gratitude for in moments where I'm not feeling so great. I'm feeling kind of down. I'm feeling kind of like lost a little bit, and, you know, just kind of melancholy about my circumstances or about certain ways that I am that aren't really appreciated in this day and age. You know, if I would have lived maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago, my inclinations, for example, to live a biblical life, to be more feminine in a more traditional way, would be normal and natural and applauded and not questioned. But because I live in 2024, where women are kind of told that we need to basically compete with men in the workforce, and we need to be like men in order to be respected by the general society. We need to be it all. We need to be, you know, able to work a high-power job and have kids and, you know, be a great wife and, a fun girlfriend and all of these things, you know what I'm saying? Like, and have an active social life and have a really interesting, you know, array of hobbies and all of this stuff. And there's so much pressure on us to just be everything. And it's exhausting to even consider that, you know. I think, especially for other women who are more oriented to a more traditional style of life. And I didn't fully grow up with that. I grew up with a single mom, but my grandparents, my mom's parents, have been married for 50 years, and they had a traditional dynamic. Like, my grandpa owned a business and he went to work every day and he provided, and my grandma was a homemaker and she took care of the kids and she did all that comes along with that, which is not an easy job by any means. In fact, it's like a job that pretty much never ends. It's like you're never off, right? But I have always felt a kinship to that. I have always felt called to that role. And throughout my time in my 20s, it's taken me until pretty recently to be able to actually say that with pride. Like, yeah, I want to be a good wife and a good mom someday. I don't want to be a high-powered career woman. I don't want that life. I don't like even having to play that role. Like, even working a 9-to-5 job, for me as a woman with our hormone cycles and everything, I just found it so exhausting to have to even play into the office politics and this and that. I just hated it. And it's not to say, like, if I would come across a job that was really meaningful and impactful and, you know, I resonated with it, could I do it? Of course I could. But for the most part, the way of life that we're sold, that we as women need to focus on building ourselves a solid career and be really financially stable and solid by ourselves until we look for a partner and until we get married and start a family. We don't have that kind of time, first of all. Like, I'm sure that there are people out there who are successfully doing that. I think that's awesome and amazing. If you really can just do that perfect trajectory, like, amazing. But as far as I can see in the Bible, for example, we were never meant to be alone. We were never meant as women, or as anybody, but especially as women, to be kind of kicked out of the nest at 18. Okay, now you need to go to college. Now you need to get a good job. Now you need to get a good career where you're making good money for yourself and you have your own apartment and you're taking care of all your bills and you're doing all of this and all of that. And then by the time you are in your mid to late 20s, now the crunch is on. Now to, like, find a husband and to get married and have kids, it's like, it's more intense. And it's weird that we are told, like, I don't know. I have a huge issue with all this, so let me not get into it right now. But yeah, if you are more traditionally inclined as a woman, it is kind of looked down upon in our modern society. And also, like, women, I think, are envious of other women who get to live that lifestyle, because you do kind of have to, I don't know, kind of go out of your way to do it in a way, because it is not the cultural norm. Like, the cultural norm now is, you know, a 50-50 kind of relationship where you're both going to work and you're both paying the bills and you're both, like, doing everything is very, like, egalitarian and very equal and whatever. And you know what? My experience of that, to be honest, because I've done that, my experience of that has been you become like roommates. So I don't really know. I don't really believe in that at this point. I think it's good to have gender roles and a separation of duties. I think it makes a marriage stronger. I'm not married yet, but I just think that it makes a relationship in general stronger when you both kind of bring things to the table that are different and equally useful, but they're not the same things. I just don't think as women we function very well doing the whole full-time work thing on top of attempting to be a good wife and a good mother. I just think that is so freaking hard. I commend anybody who's out there really doing that, because I'm exhausted even just thinking about it. Anyway, I wish that I had kind of known this about myself when I was younger so that I could have kind of sorted this out a little bit sooner, but everything happens in its perfect timing, right? I wouldn't have been fully ready. I don't think I would have been as good of a mom as I hope I will be now, like going forward, you know, soon, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really, this world that we live in is so confusing, and that's why we are called, and that's why I find it comforting, you know, as a Christian, that we are called to be set apart. We are called to not really be in this kind of culture that we are sold, because it is not biblical and it's not really what God wants for us. And so I always have to kind of hold steady to that and have faith in that, that listen, I was created the way that I was created, and I have confirmation of the way that I am in the Bible. So that feels good, at least. It's like the world does not, you know, understand me or what I what I feel inclined towards, but the Bible does. The Bible gets it. So I'm like, okay, cool. At least there's that. But I've been ranting. I don't know what this update was. I just kind of wanted to share that if you are also kind of in your isolation season right now and you're feeling like, you know, the friends that you've had, or, you know, it's probably time to really part ways and kind of have courage to do that. You don't need to do a whole big thing. You don't need to make a whole announcement, but you feel like you need to kind of go your own way and wish them the best. I get you. I feel you. I'm in the same boat. It's hard. It hurts. You know, it kind of sucks. But at the same time, if you are able to do that, you are making space in your life for people who will get you, who will be there for you, who will be on the same page as you, who will encourage you. And that gives you all the motivation and all the energy you need to do the same for them. Every relationship is symbiotic. Every relationship is a two-way dance, two-way street, right? And you don't want to be in situations and relationships with people where you feel like it's just one way, right? You know, we don't want to be doing that. So have courage, have faith. I'm in the forest today, and it really helped me. It really uplifted me. If you are able to get out into nature, I highly recommend it. It is like the only thing that makes me feel better when I'm feeling down, is literally just coming outside and being in the fresh air and just talking to God and talking to you. So thank you for listening and watching. I hope this was uplifting for you today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day or night. Okay.